Hello, this is our Rats with Team 4545 League, analyzing the game between Fezzik and Sunix. This was played in team event number 53 in the third round, and it's a very, very interesting game. Let's have a look. Okay, now we're going to go into Benoni defense, and it's really fascinating how this game unfolds. Sometimes I've seen Benonis where black just gets squeezed to death, but here he gets a lot of activity, and white at the same time seems to have free reign and is able to conduct the operations that he wants. And then all of a sudden, a little bit later, you'll see the whole complexion of the game just changes, and it's just remarkable what happens. Okay, so I'm assuming this is all book. It looks to be theory. Black would like to, of course, get b5 in and grab some space on the queen side, and white should be playing a4 here to stop that. Yep, there it is. Okay, so black still wants to do that. Black has the e5 square he'd like to get his knight to, and white will try to play e4 here and so forth, and this is designed, I think, knight d2 is designed for e4 and f4, I believe. White would like to try to eventually get e5 in himself. And if white can get e5 in a Benoni, it often just rolls it right over on its back. Okay, so black's quite active here. He's planning both b5 and knight e5. What can white do to stop that? Well, probably what white should do is just go about his business with e4 and f4. Let's see what he does. Okay, knight c4. Okay, that's all right. It has a tempo gain on d6, and again, I don't know if this is theory. Black is playing it awful quickly, so perhaps it is. And black offers an exchange of knights, which at the same time covers his pawn on d6. And white chooses this interesting move, putting a knight off to the side of the board, but it's all designed to restrain b5. Now, you might think that white will be now ready to play f4 and e4 and then recoordinate his men. He might play knight back to c4 just to have more pressure on e5 at some point. Okay, so then knight h5, and now black is energetically conducting an attack on the king side, and for the moment white only has a couple pieces over there around his king. He's got the bishop and the rook. Everything else white owns is on the queen side, and I like to point this out. I've pointed it out so many times in so many games. Here's the white queen, bishop, and queen rook still undeveloped. And almost the same thing with the black queen, rook, and bishop. Neither one has gotten out. Now, it's true the black rook moved, and it's moved with a purpose. It's trying to play b5 in, get b5 in and support that. But you can't give odds of a queen and a rook and a bishop and expect to have a good result. These guys have to get out. Here we are at move 14. And I've seen them sit there in some games after move 20. Okay, so white just goes ahead and goes about his business and doing what he wants to do, and black plays this energetic f5 thrust to undermine the white center, and this is fine. You know, I'd have to rate this game chances of about even, and white can't really shove f4 all that conveniently at some point. He'll have to stop and secure g3. So what does white do? He takes, and now that gets the dark squared or the light squared bishop of black's developed. So black's got his out, but white's aren't. So, but this leads to some very interesting complications. White has a pawn fork here, and it seems natural to play. It seems like black has made an error, but he starts finding all kinds of interesting continuations, and white's only, well, black's only given up a pawn for the piece, but he's got this wild attack going, and there's white still with those two defenders of his king, and if white does nothing here, like for instance if white grabs that knight on h5, knight g4 is coming, and there's a ominous mate threat looming that's going to be kind of hard to stop. So see what happens. He did take the knight, and let's see, black played rook f8 first. Is knight g4 worth anything? What's white do? As he stop mate? Well, I guess he can move the rook, but then black has at least a perpetual check, I would say. Queen takes f2 check. At least. Probably has more. Ouch. Okay, so what White would have to do is what he ended up doing in the game, giving up the queen for the knight. Unless I'm missing something, what else does White do here? Other than queen takes g4. It's next impossible to stop that mate. Okay, so let's get to the main position. Okay, so black played rook f8, and I don't know, White's up 2 pieces now. What's he do? You know, some of these continuations, maybe f3 with the idea of keeping a knight out of g4. I don't know. It's worth a look. Players can report back on that. Found h6, interesting move, and then black just back to rook up, and then white sends help over to help the king out. Got to get some pieces over there. That king's in trouble, and now knight g4, and I think this is where white gave up the queen. Yeah, now white gives up the queen here, but he's got 3 pieces for it, and 3 pieces for the queen is a very interesting game. I've had it twice. Once I had the 3 pieces for the queen, and once I had the queen for three pieces. I'll share those games sometime. And they're pretty much worth every bit of queen. You just have to be very careful that you don't drop one of them. But the 3 pieces can just wreak havoc on a queen. They can just harass her mercilessly, and that's a whole nother story here. So basically, if you look at point count, black is technically a pawn ahead. He has 28 guys on the board, and white has 27. That's evident here in the diagram, but those counts don't always mean everything. What matters is piece play. And here we look at the board, and there they are. They're still sitting at home. That queen, rook, and bishop, and white really needs them now, because otherwise he's just down the world defending against that queen and that active rook, and this bishop could get active here in a second too. We don't know. White can't necessarily move his bishop right away because bishop takes b2 looms. So what's white do? Okay, this is interesting. Going after the d6 pawn, and black guards it, but really is not guarding it. And white grabs it. Now it looks like maybe white's going to drop a piece, but he has a way out of it. You know, the idea is that when the knight moves on c4, that the knight on d6 hangs, but white gets out with tempo. Now he's attacking the queen, so that seems to hold on to things. And then queen f4, that seems kind of bold. You're walking into some possible discoveries, but white doesn't have time to do that. Looks like black wants to play bishop e5. I don't know, the only discovery white really has that looks aggressive is knight f5, and that could get very shaky here in a second, because now once again both knights are going to be kind of loose. So let's just take a look. Knight f5, what's it really threatening besides the queen? The queen goes and finds a new square. How about how about e5? Now black is legitimately threatening pawn takes on f5, and white doesn't have a knight e7 check. He doesn't have rook e1. He has f4, I suppose, but now his king's getting kind of frisky. Black can just find new moves here. Queen f6, and looks like white's going to get embarrassed here somewhere with those knights. Anyway, this is perfectly sound and logical. Just bring the knight back to e4. It's safe and secure. And there comes that move I was saying that black was planning, bishop e5 to threaten mate, but white can stop that. And he decides to give the king a little breathing room. Go ahead and check me, black. I don't care. And black doesn't check. Black has one interesting trump here. He's got a pawn majority, so his objective now is to create a passed pawn. And white has a passed pawn too, and he's certainly got a lot of minor pieces, all four of them as a matter of fact. He can start driving away anything that gets in its path. So if white can get that d pawn going, he's sitting fine. And this is a fine move. So finally the rook comes into play, and it's on the 7th rank, which many times will just lead to wonderful things. Always want those rooks on the 7th. And black plays here, which takes away a flight square from his king, but at the same time it keeps the pressure on f2. Okay, so d6 seems to make perfect sense. Get that pawn rolling. Okay, and not too sure what that does except help secure the queening square a little bit. And now look at those wonderful knights. This also guards the pawn on f4, or on h6 rather. The knight's threatening to go to e7 with check. All kinds of things happening here. So black plays queen g4, I guess to pin the bishop. I'm not sure, but anyway, knight e7 check, king h8. Now the black king is close to being checkmated. Were this a white bishop, it would be mate in 2, because black would have to play rook f6. But white still hasn't done anything with that poor bishop on c1, and it's hard to see how he's going to get it. Get it into play right at the moment. Black's on that diagonal, and that's what white wants to do, is get that last piece into play. And if he can do it, everything looks peachy. Okay, so this is fine. It attacks the bishop. I don't know. It is in some positions. If rook takes e5, does black escape with perpetual check? I don't know. He could. King h2, queen h5 check. You know, it gets interesting. Oh, you can't go there. The rook's on it. Okay, never mind. All right, bishop f4. Now white has an opportunity to finally get rid of that bishop by trading it. And that's what he does. So finally on move 34, the piece develops, and it just trades itself off. And white's looking okay here. He's got all his minor pieces are doing something. The bishop is not really in play, but it's supporting the aggressive knight on e4, and white's rooks are a little better. Okay, so now d7 makes sense. Get that pawn going. Now black does the same, gets his going. Now knight c6, attacking a rook and also attacking the promotion square. So black just decides it's time to go for broke. I've got to get my pawn going. And there he does. And queen b8. Now this is interesting. This is the point where white let the game go away. He's winning. And I was looking at this for a while trying to figure out exactly how. And the answer is you just got to watch your back rank checks. Okay, to win, white just plays bishop f1. Now, it doesn't really matter what black does. Let's come down here to the 8th rank. Okay, now all white does is simply, let's see, what was that? Oh wait, maybe we're not quite there yet. Let me see. Yeah, knight g5 first. Okay. Now king. Yeah, I knew something was wrong. Now bishop f1. Now if black comes down here, white just makes a queen. Okay. What's black going to do? He really doesn't have good choices. You want to make another queen? Okay, fine. Rook takes, queen takes, and after queen e7, black's hurting. There's mate threats on 2 squares. So really black's just out of gas here. And So really, after bishop f1, there's really no other choice here. But rook d2 just seems to allow a draw. And the draw in itself is interesting. Okay. Now black has the threat. Queen to e5 check, picking up the knight. So white's got to play this carefully. And bishop d5 check, forcing king in the corner. And knight check. And you can look all you want. White really doesn't have anything better than to go for perpetual. Black's ready to make another queen, and white's not covering that, so they just repeated the position a couple times, and the game ended in a draw. Well, it was highly entertaining to me. I hope you liked it as well. Game drawn by mutual agreement. I thank you for your time, and look forward to talking to you next game. Take care. Thanks.